Hi, everybody. It's Eric Murray from the SugarHuddle.com. Well, the Bears-Rams Sunday night game proved to be pretty magical for Chicago. Obviously, they pulled a few rabbits out of their hat and also played a lot of really great defense that's reminiscent of a lot of the great Bears teams in the past, including obviously the '85 Bears that everybody loves so much. For Chicago, they made somewhat of a pretty important statement when they beat the Vikings a few weeks back, but hosting the Rams Sunday Night Football, Rams came in the game, obviously the number one seed in the NFC at the time last night. Obviously, huge game for the Bears to prove themselves, and all they did was hold the mighty Rams offense to 6 points, a team that averages 35 points and 440 yards a game. 6 points, and I can't remember what the final yardage total was, maybe like 200 or actually, yeah, just over 200. But anyways, you hold Rams offense to just a couple of field goals, which both came in the first half. You're doing something right, and as we know, the Bears, their defense, one of the best in football, lead the league in takeaways. And the most impressive thing that they did last night was they intercepted Jared Goff 4 times. Goff, not used to playing in the cold weather, and he learned pretty quickly what it's like to play in the cold, especially when you have no running game. One of the things that Chris Collinsworth pointed out on the NBC telecast is, what would this Rams offense look like if you take away their running game? And remember, Todd Gurley had just 6 yards on his first 6 carries. He ended up, I think, with 28 on 11 carries. And I believe as a team, the Rams only had 52 yards. So, back and forth, both quarterbacks, both Goff and Mitchell Trubisky, really struggling in the first half. Goff underthrew a lot of passes, really off the mark. I think down the stretch, not having Cooper Kupp is really going to be pretty challenging for him. And Trubisky, he's just coming back from injury, and you could tell that he's still a little bit out of rhythm and had a little bit of trouble in this one as well. Both quarterbacks played pretty ugly football, 7 combined interceptions. Trubisky himself had 3. Trubisky barely threw for 100 yards. Goff, I think, at 180. So between the two, less than 300 combined passing yards, and sub 50% completion percentage, I believe, between the two of them. So, obviously it wasn't an easy game for the Rams. Started second half, tied at 6-6. Penalty, they started at their own 13-yard line after the kickoff. Then the very first play, handed off to Todd Gurley, lose 5 yards. And the second play, Jared Goff drops back, rush up the middle, and gets sacked in the end zone by Eddie Goldman. And suddenly it's 8-6. And then the Bears obviously getting the ball right back on the safety kick. They drive it right down the field. And, the big magical trick of the game is, of course, when Matt Nagy decided to bring in a number of Chicago Bears defensive players into the formation on a third and goal at, I believe it was I want to say it was a 3-yard line, 3 or 4-yard line. Anyways, they put Akeem Hicks, the Pro Bowler, in the backfield in the shotgun next to Trubisky. They've handed off to him before. This time they faked the handoff, and Bradley Sowell, an offensive lineman, ended up catching the touchdown. All of a sudden became 15-6. The Rams missed a field goal along the way. They threw an interception right after intercepting Trubisky in his own territory, or returning it into Chicago territory. So, it was just kind of, there was just something off about the Rams all night long, and you just kind of felt like, what, the Bears outplayed them. The Bears were the better team, but at the same time, maybe it just wasn't the Rams' night. And give Chicago a lot of credit. Defense, like I said, they played lights out. Picking off Goff 4 times was pretty unbelievable, pretty remarkable stuff there. And, for Chicago themselves, even though they had no passing game, what made that even more remarkable with the 3 interceptions, barely throwing for 100 yards, is the fact that they still had 194 rushing yards against this Rams defense, 35 carries, $194. Jordan Howard had 101. Tariq Cohen had 69 on just 9 attempts. Even Trubisky had 23, and like I said, Gurley had 28 on 11 carries. Trubisky had 23 on just 6 carries. So, definitely one of those things where you look at it and you say to yourself, pretty unbelievable effort by the Chicago Bears, and really a far more impressive win than even when they beat the Vikings a few weeks back. So suddenly the Bears are 9-4. They stay just ahead of the Cowboys as the 3 seed and the NFC. Of course, both teams trying to see if there's any possible way that they can battle to maybe get the 2 seed. With the Cowboys, being 8-5, they basically have no chance. But obviously, with the Chicago Bears, you never know. Rams have some tough games coming up to close out the season, so Chicago might be able to steal a 2 seed. But even if they end up as a 3 seed, not too shabby, because right now you're looking at playing the Vikings in the wild card playoff, or you're looking at playing another substandard team, possibly, if it doesn't end up being the Minnesota Vikings. So, overall, it was a really important win for the Bears. Not officially in the playoffs yet, haven't officially clinched the NFC North, but they're dangerously close. So needless to say, they're very much on the verge of clinching the NFC North. And, for the Rams, it's one of those things that you look at it and you say to yourself, it's not the most damning loss in the world, in the sense that if you look at the NFC playoffs, they're not going to be playing in this kind of weather, because if everything holds up, they're going to be either the 1 or 2 seed along with New Orleans. So New Orleans, Los Angeles, either order, they'll be 1 and 2. So you're either going to be in LA, beautiful weather, or you're going to be inside the Superdome in New Orleans. So you don't have to worry about playing in the cold weather in the postseason. So a loss like this, a struggle like this, it's not the end of the world. But if you do happen to play the Bears again in the playoffs, you better be ready, because they ran all over you. They stopped your running game, intercepted you a bunch of times. So that could be a little bit concerning. And obviously the Rams, they also couldn't do anything defensively against the Saints, as we saw about a month or so ago. But overall, I look at the Rams and I still say they're going to be fine. They can rebound. I think the more concerning thing is Jared Goff just has not played good football the last few weeks. Last week in Detroit, he didn't look good at all. They were still able to hang on and get the win, pull away by a couple touchdowns, but he hasn't played very good football lately, certainly the worst football since his rookie year. And then the other side of it, looking at the Chicago Bears, this is, you could argue, their most important win since the 2006 NFC Championship game. Now, of course, they got to the 2010 NFC title game, lost that to the Packers, but they got there. So maybe you could say that divisional playoff game leading into that NFC title game, maybe that's, maybe it's their most important win since then. But the point is, give or take a decade, by a couple years, one way or another, you're talking about the biggest win that this franchise has had in a long, long time, being able to beat these Rams. And I think really what it does is it validates the Chicago Bears a little bit more, because the way the Vikings are playing, some people are going to look at it and say, maybe that win over Minnesota wasn't really that amazing. And obviously, their next game, they host the Packers. If they beat the Packers, that's not an amazing win because of the year the Packers are having. But when you beat a team like the LA Rams in the year the Rams are having, again, coming into this game, they were the number 1 seed in the NFC. It's just something different. There's a different feeling. And suddenly you look at Chicago and say, you know what? They have a championship caliber defense. And even in a year that's all about offense and all about scoring, they can still make stops and they can still shut you down. And their own offense can still move the football even when they're not scoring a bunch of touchdowns. So I think you have to look at it from that point of view. And as far as the Rams go, they host the Eagles Sunday Night Football. Eagles are going to be desperate for a win. Rams are going to be looking for a bounce back at home in LA. So obviously they'll get back to better weather. But I think the Rams will take care of business. It's really going to be interesting, though, these final 3 games, because with the loss and obviously the Saints already beating the Rams head-to-head a while back, the Saints now, via tiebreaker, is back in the lead as the number 1 seed in the NFC. So it's really going to be interesting to see which one of those 2 teams can seal the deal, get the job done, and clinch that number 1 seed. Because if the Rams can somehow do it and avoid having to go to New Orleans and play in the Superdome, that's huge. But if New Orleans can clinch it and force teams to come to their house, it's a totally different ballgame in the NFC playoffs. So anyways, those are just some of my thoughts on Sunday Night Football. I'll have my Monday night stuff up tomorrow. Anyways, go to sugarhuddle.com, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also like my Facebook page, The Sugar Huddle. Thank you.